Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines. What we will try and understand a couple of important articles from the Hindu which can be very important from GS paper 1, GS paper 2 as well as GS 3 perspective. Let us try and understand all these important articles from the UPSC examination perspective, KPSC as well as other relevant civil services examination. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says rain fury claims more lives in Himachal Pradesh as well as Uttarakhand. This article is important from two important papers. One happens to be a GS paper 1 which is to do with your geography. The other happens to be GS paper 3 which is to do with your disaster management. What is this article speaking about? The article is speaking about some of the geographical concepts. Let's say for example the western disturbances. It also speaks about cloud burst, so on and so forth, and it also brings into an idea about the disaster management with respect to landslide, so on and so forth. First, let us try and understand what is the context of this article. When we look into a couple of states in northern India right now, we have the states of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, which are continuously witnessing a lot of rain in that part of the state. Why is it witnessing a lot of rains? That is because of two important reasons. What are these reasons? One happens to be western disturbance, the other happens to be resulting in cloud burst. So what we will try and understand in today's lecture is the concept of western disturbance, how it is creating a problem in the northern part of couple of states, and at the same time we will also try and understand the concept of cloud burst and how this is creating a lot of problems to couple of states in the northern part. First important point that we have to understand is the concept of western disturbance. What is this concept of western disturbance? As the very name denotes, you have two words here. One is the concept called as western, the other happens to be disturbance. What is the disturbance? When we look into the nature, what we have is a certain kind of stability that the nature has provided all of us. When this stability or the equilibrium is disturbed, so this disturbance is what is called as disturbances. For example, in a particular region there is air which is able to manage the pressure in that particular area. So when this equilibrium is disturbed, when there is excessive low pressure that is created, when the stability and the equilibrium is disturbed, what we create is an instability in that particular area. Why is this instability created? That is because this is happening in the western region. So the western region basically means that we have the Mediterranean Sea. From the western Mediterranean Sea, what we have is a cyclonic storm, and this cyclonic storm also carries within it a moisture, and when this particular moisture moves from the western region to the eastern region, that is what is called as western disturbances. So what exactly happens? We have the Mediterranean Sea. There is Mediterranean Sea, it has a lot of moisture in it, so there is waves of disturbance, that is an equilibrium which is established is disturbed, so it carries this oceanic water, moves from the western region to the eastern disturbance to the eastern region, and once it comes to the eastern region, because of the Himalayas that we present, it hits, and ultimately what we see is moisture which is falling in the Himalayan region. So that is why western disturbances refers to a cyclonic storm that begins in the Mediterranean and brings heavy rainfall to the mountain areas in the Indian subcontinent. So the moisture that is present in the Mediterranean Sea, that is the western part, is carried and it comes all the way to the Indian subcontinent, and in the Indian subcontinent what we have is these huge mountains. Since it cannot move past this particular region, it hits, and ultimately what we have is rainfall in this particular area. So a western disturbance is associated with rainfall, snowfall, fog in the northern India. Upon its arrival in Pakistan and northern India, clouds along with rain and snow also arrive. The moisture which western disturbances carry with them comes from the Mediterranean Sea or from the Atlantic Ocean. So the major reason as to why we have these heavy rainfall in the northern part of India, especially in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, is due to the western disturbances. Another concept that we also have to understand is with respect to the cloudburst. What exactly happens in cloudburst when it comes to the June, July and August month? What we have is extreme warm temperatures in the northern hemisphere. So what is a cloudburst? It happens to be a rainfall of 10 centimeters or more in an hour over a roughly 10 kilometer and 10 kilometer area and is classified as a cloudburst event. By this definition, 5 centimeter of rainfall in half an hour period over the same area would also be categorized as a cloudburst. During a cloudburst, even a place receives about 10% of this annual rainfall within an hour. So what is this cloud burst? So when there is a particular area where you have the cumulus plus nimbus clouds that are formed, which forms the cumulonimbus clouds, and when there is continuous rainfall in a region which is dominated by the hills, so you have massive amount of rainfall, and as we discussed, 10 centimeter or more in an hour over a roughly 10 kilometer area is what is called as cloudburst. So cloudburst is that particular event where there is excessive rainfall that occurs, especially in the hilly region, especially in that particular area, excessively for a very short period of time is what is called as burst. Why is it called as burst? That is because the cloud opens up, there is excessive rainfall in that area surrounding the hill region, which is what is called as cloudburst. So when you look into the present situation, one question that we need to ask is it because of the climate change circumstances? When you look at the world around, we are witnessing couple of important geographical phenomenon. There is wildlife fire that is taking place. There is forest fires that is taking place. Then what we are witnessing is extreme temperature as well, warming up of the oceans. So is cloudburst as also a paradigm of this climate change? There are few people say yes to this particular issue. Why? Because there is excessive warming that is taking place, but in the specific region, in the specific time, at this moment, it may not be because of climate change alone. There are a couple of factors that are attributed to it, but world over there have been increasing cases of couple of geographical phenomenon that have been taking place. These could be the result of climate change, and these are a result of anthropogenic induced factors that have been taking place world over. Next question is, can cloudburst be forecast? It is very tough for the Indian Meteorological Department or any of the meteorological departments to forecast the cloudburst. Why? They would be able to say that we would have heavy rainfall, light rainfall or very heavy rainfall as well, but they would not be able to predict precisely whether cloudburst can happen in a specific region or not. That is because we still do not have enough of resources. We do not have advancement in the technology which is able to predict cloudburst at a particular time at that specific region. So they would be able to say that we have rainfall in so and so region. This can be low, it can be high, it can also be very high, so on and so forth. But will they be able to predict precisely that cloudburst is going to happen in that particular region? The answer is a clear cut no. Are cloudbursts increasing lately? Yes and no as well. Yes, because of what we are seeing in couple of states in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, so on and so forth. But at the same time, is it because of the climate change? Only time will say. So if more number of such incident happens, even when there is no warm temperature, even when there are no geographical conditions that are met, and this is only because of anthropogenic induced factors, then we can say that it is because of climate change. As of now, in the specific instance, it may not be because of climate change, but more statistics, more data, if we are able to have them, that will give us a clear cut concordant evidence whether it is because of climate change or not. So what is happening in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand is currently cloudbursts and western disturbances, which is creating a havoc in that particular region. So because of these incidents, what it is resulting is in the landslides. So because of the landslides, what we are witnessing is large scale devastation in this part. One, there is economic disturbances. The other is loss of lives as well. On one side, because of economic disturbances, infrastructure is under trouble. People have also lost their near and dear ones as well. So this is the voice of the nature, and we would not be able to stop the fury of the nature is what we have to understand from this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from your GS paper to polity perspective. We will not take this analysis from the political point of view. There are some politics that are involved with this. I am not a political spokesperson, or I am not speaking for a political party or against a political party. But what are we trying to understand from this? We are going to understand that democracy is very important, how the very idea of democracy has to be treated. If there is a certain imbalance in the society, this will lead to imbalance in the demography, and ultimately what we will witness is a democracy crisis, says this article. Let me explain this with what the author says. The author in this particular case brings on the perspective of political sociologist who happens to be Patrick Heller. Let me simplify this entire process for you. So what is democracy? Democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is by the people. So who are the people? It is us, all of us. We are not able to actively participate in the politics. So what do? We elect the elected representatives. These representatives ultimately voice our concern in the parliament, and ultimately a consensus is reached, and all important laws, so on and so forth, is designed by the parliament as well as the state legislature. So democracy is by the people and for the people. When these laws are made, the laws are made for the people. So the laws that the representative make is for the people. So we are electing the representatives, they are voicing our concerns, and these laws are for the people. So democracy by the people and for the people. And when you look at this particular idea, the author goes on to say that there has to be a balance between politics, that is the representatives whom we elect, and at the same time the civil society. The civil society that we have in our society, that is all the groups, individuals, they have to be actively participating in the politics of the country. If there is no active participation, if this civil society is not keeping the political class under check through their active participation, this can result in democracy crisis. This can result in a problem for the society, says this article. So what is the analogy of the political sociologist Patrick Heller? He goes on to point out that there has to be a balance between the political and civil society, which is critical for the sustenance of the democratic institutions and the practices. So let's say for example we have the right to information, or let's say for example we have the Human Rights Commission, or let's say for example we have the Election Commission, or let's say for example any other body as well. When this particular institution, which happens to be the fourth arm institutions, what are the fourth arm institutions? We have three organs of the state. We have the legislature, we have the executive, we also have the judiciary as well. The fourth arm institutions are basically like the Election Commission of India, UPSC, so on and so forth, who also implement very important data when it comes to the country as well. So what exactly happens? They are the democratic institutions that have been established as a result of statutory provision or through the constitution. So if the people who elect the representatives are not keeping it a check, then ultimately this could result in a chaos. So what we require is a balance. So a balance between political parties and the civil society organizations. If the civil society organizations is not questioning the political party, in that particular case there will be dominance, there will be uttermost chaos, because this political party may ultimately subjugate the rights of the people. So a balance has to be determined, and this balance is very important, says Patrick Heller. The second happens to be democratic crisis is a symptom of failure to incorporate the sub-proletariat, the masses who remain outside the realm of the capitalist accumulation, into the economic and mainstream. What do we understand by this? We have two concepts here. One is the bourgeois, the other happens to be the proletariat. Who is bourgeois? Bourgeois happens to be the employer. I, as bourgeois, I have huge investments on the capital. So what do? I want to make sure that a particular production happens. So what do? I have the money, I invest into the market, I take the risk, and at the same time, I want people to be my laborers, and I ensure that I pay them very meager amount. So who is bourgeois here? Bourgeois happens to be the employer. It is the employer who is investing the money. It is the employer who is taking the money from the, who is giving money money to the laborers and extracting labor from the laborers. So the laborers that we are speaking of, from whom the employer is taking the work, is called as the proletariat. So we have the bourgeois who represent the capitalist class, and they are able to extract the money from the system. They are able to make huge investments. They are taking a lot of profits. But is it at the same time going to the proletariat who happen to be the working class? So the article in this particular case goes on to say that when it comes to India, we had a political class, the elite political class, who were not able to establish this. Ultimately, you have the political representatives, you have the people who are electing them, then you also have capitalism as well. So the capitalists, the employers, are able to make their own profits. You have the political elite. Immediately after independence, the political elite were not able to accommodate this section, that is the proletariat, the sub-proletariat. So this section includes the rural masses. The rural masses have no idea what is happening in the country. They are putting in their hard efforts, they are putting in their labor, they are putting in all the efforts that is required for them to uplift and also come up in the economic ladder. But then the political elite after independence is not allowing this sub-proletariat, that is the rural masses, and at the same time the unemployed in the urban sector. So the author goes on to say, first, in order to make sure that we do not have democracy crises, there has to be a balance. Balance of what? Balance between the political parties and the people. And second, they go on to say that the political elite will also have to put in this sub-proletariat, that is the masses are not empowered economically because there is bourgeois who's taking away all the profits, and at the same time this masses is also not accommodated in the political system. This could also result in democratic crisis. So what is the democratic crisis we are speaking of? One, they should have been economically empowered, which they are not empowered because of the bourgeois and the proletariat differentiation, and at the same time they should have been politically empowered as well. They should have been socially given a particular idea. There is no economic prosperity and social prosperity. If this social prosperity and economic prosperity is not present in the society, this could result in a chaos, says the author. So these two balances will have to be maintained. Third, it is when the sub-proletariat begin to make some economic and political gains through collective mobilization that traditionally dominant elites then form a reactionary social coalition. What do we understand by this? Let's say, for example, there is a particular group. This group wants to also have a social status, economic status, but they are not part of this employer, so they do not have much of the money. The political elites are present. So what we have is two kinds of group here. One who've been holding traditionally this political clout, but there are other section of people who are the sub-proletariat who do not have the power whatsoever. So what do this sub-proletariat do? They mobilize the crowd. They say that we do not have anything whatsoever, we do not have the political power, nor do we have the money to create the labor and help our people. So the sub-proletariat galvanize the people, ensure that there is mobilization of the crowd, so that all these collective individuals, the rural masses, the unemployment youth, all of them come together, they mobilize together, their numbers start increasing, and once this number start increasing and consolidating, they together become one unit, and this unit will want to create their own political party, or they want to create their own voluntary groups, or they want to create their own pressure groups as well. When such groups come together, there is mobilization, they want to create a pressure group, then the political elite that is present, the few people, they become the reactionary social group. That is because they have been historically consolidating the power, but now there is mobilization of the crowd, and when this mobilization of the crowd takes place, the elite, the political elite who were previously present, they become reactionary social coalition. And lastly, democratic backsliding reaches a crisis point when this reactionary social coalition, having consolidated its state power, starts to subvert democratic institutions and practices in order to preserve or restore their social and economic privileges. So this mobilized crowd, when they start questioning these political elites who might have formed the political party, they start making use of the stationery and their authorities and ultimately stamp this mobilization. So the author in this particular case goes on to say that if this mobilization or this crowd or the civil society is not able to keep a check on the political elite and the political parties will dominate on the people. They would not be able to make sure that their rights are intact. They will not be able to safeguard their rights as well. But at the same time, if this mobilization, if these section of the people are able to question the political elite, in that case, the political elite will also listen to them. It will also ensure that authorities are not used against them, and at the same time these political elite also come up with welfare schemes and programs, and when civil society is actively participant, they may also remove certain legislations which they have already enacted, says this article. So basically this article goes on to say that you have the political elite, you also have the civil society. The civil society, in order to prevent democracy crisis, will constantly have to keep this political elite under check, is what is this article all about. So basically the author goes on to say that after independence, when we look at countries like India, Brazil or South Africa, they have had similar conditions. They have also had similar economic conditions, social conditions, and they were all under the conditions of the British administration. So after they got independence, they did get the independence, but what we have is a consolidation of few political parties and elites. If they have to be kept a check, what we require is civil society actively participating in the process, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says High Court bats for animals' rights to live without fear. What is the context? Highlighting the right of animals to live freely from fear and distress, the Madras High Court has ordered relocation of 495 families of Tengu Murahada, a village situated in eastern boundary of Madumalai Tiger Reserve. The first important pointer from the examination point of view is, where is this Madumalai Tiger Reserve? This happens to be a tiger reserve in the state of Tamil Nadu. Let's look at some factual information. Madumalai basically means the ancient hill range. It is indeed as old as 65 million years when the Western Ghats was formed. It is located in the Nilgiris district of Tamil Nadu state, spread over 688.59 square kilometer at the tri-junction of three states. Which are these states? Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and it plays a unique role by forming part of the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve, the first biosphere reserve in India declared during 1986. It has a common boundary with Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary on the west, Bandipur Tiger Reserve in Karnataka on the north, and Nilgiris Division on the south and east, and Gudalur Forest Division on the southwest, together forming a large conservation landscape for flagship species such as tiger and Asian elephant. So this is very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now what does this article go on to speak about? This article currently goes on to say that when this particular area was formed, that is Tengu Marhada, this happens to be one of the regions where about 100 acres of land was given. So 100 acres of land were given in the year 1948, basically to ensure that people who have been traditionally part of this particular society are able to live in harmony with other species in that particular area, which also happens to be a forest area as well. But over a period of time, this 100 acres of land was further increased to about 500 acres of land for the human settlement. This basically means 100 acres was increased to about 500 acres, which means there is more number of people. Previously, there were very less number of people. There was not much human-animal conflict. But of late, what we witness is increased human-animal conflict. Because the 100 acres have been increased to 500 acres, there are more number of people within this particular area. So the Madras High Court has looked into this particular issue and has gone ahead and said that there are more people in this particular area. Animals also have their rights as well. Their rights are getting subjugated because of the human-animal conflict. There are animals which are coming in conflict with the humans. Humans are killing these animals, and ultimately animals have lost their rights. And as a result, what we have to do is take these people out of this particular area and also provide them rehabilitation. So all those people who are in excess, these people will be removed from such an area in the Madumalai Tiger Reserve. They would be provided a rehabilitation amount of about 15 lakh. This amount will be taken from the CAMPA, which happens to be the Compensatory Afforestation Fund, as well as the National Tiger Conservation Authority's funds as well. So these two bodies will provide the funding to these people so that they are rehabilitated to a new region. So the major idea being, initially there were very less number of people. This has been increased to 500 acres. More people, more conflict, and animals are at trouble. In order to safeguard the rights of the people, these people will be provided rehabilitation. Let's give them another option of moving to some other area. Added to it, this particular region is also important because there are breeding populations of tiger, elephant, leopard, sloth bear, wild dog, hyena, black buck. All these important species are also present. It is also a particular landscape which is safeguarding tigers as well. And when there is this particular area where humans are doing, what do? They obviously start fencing, so other animals will not be able to move from one particular region to other region as well. Why? Because the humans want to safeguard themselves. They create a place where there is a lot of fences that are created. This is also preventing migration. This is also preventing the reproductive rights of the animals, so they have to be safeguarded. So ultimately, let's move them out. Let's have the minimal numbers that is possible, and for all those who have been asked to move out, provide them the rehabilitation, and this funding will be taken out of CAMPA, says the Madras High Court. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says 275 bird species counted during survey at Corbett Tiger Reserve. First important pointer is with respect to the Corbett Tiger Reserve. As part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section, where is this Corbett Tiger Reserve? We did just discuss about Madumalai, but as part of the assignment, put on the comment section some of the important factual data with respect to the Corbett Tiger Reserve and where is it located, which state is it located, is what you have to put on the comment section. The article is important because it speaks about couple of species. One, it speaks about endangered species, vulnerable species, critically endangered species. Which are these critically endangered species? The report here speaks about one, the white-trumped vulture. The second happens to be red-headed vulture. These two are critically endangered in the IUCN Red List. Why are these species placed in the critically endangered species? That is because we have one of the medicines called as diclofenac. This diclofenac as a medicine is administered to the animals. So animals like cattle, like cows, buffalo, so on and so forth. So when they pass away, the carcasses of this particular species, that is the cattle, is ultimately eaten by the vultures. These diclofenac are very harmful for these vultures. So when the dead bodies or the carcasses of these animals like cow, so on and so forth, is eaten by the vulture, the diclofenac are indeed harmful to these vultures, and ultimately when they eat and ingest them, their intestines are hurt and they also pass away as well. That is why their numbers have been dwindling. So over a period of time, it was placed under critically endangered. So two important pointers, these two species are placed in critically endangered, but point to be remembered is their numbers are dropping is because of one of the medicines that have been administered to the cattle called as diclofenac. Further, the species what we have is two endangered species, which is called as Pallas fish eagle, and at the same time Egyptian culture, and then what we have is the 4 vulnerable bird species, which include great hornbill, gritty salty woodpecker, grey crowned prinia, as well as river tern. These are the species which are in vulnerable and these are endangered. This can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article. This article says consumption based poverty estimates have relevance. The article here is speaking about the multi-dimensional poverty index that was released by Niti Aayog. It also makes a mention about global multi-dimensional poverty index. What we will try and understand is with respect to the Niti Aayog on multi-dimensional poverty. What does it say? It says that the percentage of the poor has gone down from 25% in 2015 and 16 to 15% in 2019 and 21. Around 135 million people were lifted out of poverty. If we look into the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index report of 2023 of United Nations Developmental Programme and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, which was released recently, also shows the incidence of multidimensional poverty index declined from 27.5% in 2015 and 16 to 16.2% in 2019 and 21. So because we have one international report and index, Niti Aayog has come up with this multidimensional poverty index. So what does this index speak about? This index currently goes on to say that we have the second edition of the multidimensional poverty index. So who is it released by? It is released by Niti Aayog. It captures overlapping deprivations in health, education as well as the living standards. What are the dimensions that are covered under health? It includes nutrition and child adolescent mortality under health, years of schooling under education, access to cooking fuel, electricity, bank accounts, so on and so forth under the quality of living. So on the basis of all these parameters, a score is declared which is called as the deprivation score. The deprivation score is the sum of weighted status of all the indicators of an individual. If it is more than 0.33, only then an individual is considered as multidimensionally poor. So it means that he is poor on the health front, he is poor on the quality of living front, and at the same time educational front as well. What does the data go on to reveal? The data says even as there has been significant reduction in the number of multidimensional poor individuals, it is worth noting that 1 in 7 Indians continue to fall under the category, primarily because poverty reduction is not equally represented in 3 main indicators. Within the health category, 3 sub-indicators, which is nutrition, child and adolescent mortality and maternal health, showed only moderate improvement. Nutrition deprivation decreased from 37% to 31%. Lack of proper nutrition contributed close to 30%. Household income is nutritionally deprived if any child between the age of 0 to 59 months or women between the ages of 15 to 49 years or man between the ages of 15 to 54 years for whom nutritional information is available is found to be undernourished. Children under 5 years of age are considered malnourished if their Z-score for height for age stunting or weight for age is below -2 standard deviations, and other indicators that did not record a significant decline and aided the most in keeping Indians poor include lack of years of schooling, inadequate access to maternal health services, and less than desired school attendance. These are some important pointers given by Niti Aayog. So Bihar happens to be one of the state which is most suffering when it comes to all these parameters. This can also be important from the preliminary examination point of view. So basically this article takes into picture health, education and quality of living, and that is the major point of multidimensional poverty that has been released by Niti Aayog. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching, and if you liked our initiative, please to like, forward it to your fellow aspirants and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. All the best.